its completion. What are the key research areas that you've been focused on?
Okay, stream might be
most
done.
lately?
Yeah, that's a great point. That one thing I'll point out is that we all grew up in a world of Moore's law.
There you go.
We always knew there was going to be more compute next year. And the platforms have been consistent since Xerox PARC in the sense of, again, 2D surface, pointing device, keyboard. So that has kind of gotten us used to a world in which really everything's a software problem and the platform underneath it only changes in incremental ways. But what we're talking about here is really a change all the way from the bottom, where the hardware, the software, the applications all will evolve over time into much more powerful forms.
You keep talking about the input modalities, this touching the keyboard and the pointing device. And, these were things that were highly contentious in the 1950s and 1960s. What were going to be the methodologies that people were going to use to get information to the computer. We since kind of zoomed in on one. Sure, we replaced the mouse for direct touch in the case of touch screens, but otherwise we've been incredibly consistent for a long time, and those modalities just don't work in augmented and virtual reality. And so that's another area that is such a key piece that's so different from the previous generation of technology.
Absolutely. In fact, that may end up being the most fundamental aspect of all, which is when you're walking around the world, you're not going to be popping up menus and pointing at them, right? You're not going to be tapping on surfaces all the time. What you want is you want the right thing to happen when you want it to happen. And that really comes down to a combination of being able to sense the world around you, of understanding your context, of having AI that can make sense of that to help you, and then of having this ultra low friction input that lets you act easily, intuitively, anytime, any place. All those pieces need to come together. So that's one of the big things that we have been working on developing. And we've talked many times publicly about EMG, electromyography, which I think is the future of how we will interact with the virtual world. It's something that lets us monitor the nerve impulses and small muscle movements in our wrists so that we can easily, privately, and with high bandwidth interact with the digital world.
For me, at least, this input story is an AI story. It's not just the sensing that you need on the wrist, ideally, to detect those signals. It's also the artificial intelligence required to decode those, have enough of a general model that the entire population can get started, and then be able to personalize that model. And we're talking about something called coevolution, which was foundational in the very earliest user interfaces being designed at Stanford Research Institute, was this idea of coevolution. But it was so hard to do back then that basically almost all the evolution had to happen on the side of the consumer. The machine couldn't really help. And with today's AI powers, we can actually really help adapt these models to each individual in the same way that we adapt people's news feeds to their personal preferences.
Exactly. And a way to think about it is that when you click on an icon on a screen, it feels like, well, it's just a simple action, but there's a huge amount of context that goes into it. What